Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Plank of the Week, the most popular television show which we do here at Talk Radio TV, one of several, and I'm delighted to say that we've got another cast of legends here today. I've got Jerry Hayes, barrister, raconteur, former Tory MP, a man who knows more secrets than he can remember himself, right? And of course Alex Phillips, former Brexit Party MEP, who has only recently stopped working for leaving the European Union because we've already left. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start off with you, Jerry. Why don't you give us your first nomination?
The first one is
Plank of the
Priti
Week?
Patel. Apart from being dim, she can't help that.
I don't think she's dim.
Oh, she is. Oh, yes.
What makes you say that?
Oh, all the civil servants. Whichever department she's gone to, they regard her as seriously dim. You know,
Are these the same civil servants who have been leaking?
No,
to the Times?
Home Office has always done that. Home Office is dysfunctional, ghastly political graveyard. Only two people really survived. Well, Ken Clarke, Willie Whitelaw. Willie Whitelaw just used to get them drunk.
You're not allowed to do that anymore.
No, it's terrible.
But why are you against her, though? Just for being dim?
No, not just for being dim. I mean, she doesn't know the difference between terrorism and counter-terrorism, which is a bit of a problem if you're Home Secretary. Secondly, she said, look, we're going to retrain all these people. There's 8 million people, but mostly they're students or they're too ill to work or they're carers. So, you know, she doesn't even know her brief.
So you're not against her for her policies on immigration?
Oh, policies on immigration just don't work.
The point system. How do you know? It hasn't been tried yet.
I'll tell you, I'll give you a classic example. It's all these, well, you'd say this, but I disagree with it. But nevertheless, the policy is, look, all these people are coming over, unskilled, pick your potatoes, all the rest of it. No, we're going to train lots of British people to do it. Oh, yeah. However, if a company or a sector wants people like that to come over, we'll allow them to do it. So that means the whole thing is a complete farce.
Right, well, they're going to let people in to pick the potatoes.
Well, I think it's a good thing.
So don't worry, you'll still be able to get your potatoes
like,
Lyonnaise down at the Garrick Club. You know, whatever you pop in there for your
you can still get your chips.
Up.
You can still get your chips.
What makes you think I eat like chips?
Because, you know, you look like a chip man.
See, he's so prejudiced. He's managed to come up with about 8 prejudices in the first 5 minutes. Let's move on to you, Alex. Who's your first nominee?
It's got to be Harry and Meghan.
It does have
every
to be.
time.
It does, yeah.
They just veer from one crisis to the next. In
do.
fact, it's not really them, is it? I don't think. Well, maybe it is her.
It has to
That's
be.
what we all
It
think.
has to be,
but
doesn't it?
they've clearly got some utterly shite advisors.
They really have.
They've got Americans out there going, do you know what? Oh, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
That's a
Who the hell does the Queen think she is?
Yeah. She can't decide who's royal.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I know.
Yeah, if these people want to make money out of being adored, and I get the impression that she especially has this need to be famous and adored, stop peeing off the British public.
I think Piers Morgan was right.
Piers
Morgan was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, well, I mean, he knows more about her than most people because,
he does.
you know, don't forget, she did seek him out.
Yes.
To ask his advice about who she should talk to.
Yeah.
To try and make a name for
and
herself
then she cut him dead.
And then
just
she cut
before
him
she
dead,
became
as she
royal.
does with everybody else.
Yeah.
Right.
I think she has put a slice of ice in Prince Harry's heart. Because Harry seemed, I've never met him, I never will, seems a nice guy.
He seemed a decent enough guy. And he wasn't filled with this kind of, you know, the terrible degree of grief for his mother's death when he was prancing around naked in Las Vegas with a load of strippers.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to be too bothered about it then.
How tasteless for one of their first public functions, of which they clearly made dough from it, didn't they?
Oh,
Going
they
to speak
did.
to the big bankers or whatever.
Oh, yeah, they made
Talking
$1 million.
about mental health issues. And that's another thing. Today, if you don't have a mental health issue, that's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is really important, actually. It touches so many people.
Well, it's important for people who are suffering from it, but what it's not important
for their families.
but what it's not important for is
seems
for
to have
people
one now.
who are not suffering from it to make out that they are in order to make a bucket load of money. Because there are people out there who are doing that. I'm not going to name them, but there are people out there in the public domain who go, oh, leave me alone, I've got mental health issues. Here's my book. And then you're supposed to buy the book because it's all about mental health and it's supposed to help everybody else that's got mental health. Actually, it's a business. They're making money.
I actually think if you play the game of where have they gone and what are they doing? You know, think of someone who was famous about 10 years ago. Go on their Wikipedia page or their Twitter feed or whatever to see what they're doing now. About 90% of them have mental health issues and want to talk about it.
Right.
And the problem is, look, you know, mental health is a serious issue. I'm not saying it's not. But if it becomes a situation in society, which it's becoming now, that if you rub along in life without problems, then that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it almost becomes trendy to have a mental health issue. You're going to make everybody start introspecting and thinking there's something wrong with them.
You know as well as I do, Jerry, there are plenty of people who've got up to some bad stuff in their time. And sometimes when they worry about it coming out, they suddenly develop depression.
Well, they
or
go
a
on
mental health
They
problem.
go on a journey.
They go on a journey.
They go on a journey.
And that means that they are then untouchable. The tabloids can't go anywhere near them. Nobody can say anything horrible about them. They can be whatever they used to be, and it's all forgotten
But
about.
it's not
And
to
that's
say that it's
good.
not a serious problem. My daughter's a primary school teacher, and she actually teaches mindfulness to the 8-year-old kids.
Yeah.
Because if you can sort out stress
Listen,
at
I
that
don't
age,
disagree.
it's a good thing
Listen,
to do.
I do not disagree that it's a serious issue. However, I think it has been hijacked to a large extent, and it has been sort of, taken advantage of, shall we say, by certain people who are making money out of it. And I don't like to see that.
That's the big thing at the moment.
Okay, so it's time for my first one, and I'm going to stick with the political line here because I saw an amazing story the other day about Caroline Lucas, the only Green MP who happens to sit in the House of Commons. She keeps getting re-elected, amazingly, in Brighton, of all places, the only part of the country which actually thinks they want a Green MP. But she's so kind of, holier than thou. This is a woman who last year admitted that she did actually fly to see her son, who lives in America, even though she realised that, she was supposed to be telling everybody else not to fly, because she said it's not just about your personal life. And of course I have to see my son. So that's okay for her, but not for me or you or anybody else, right? It turns out that now she's been caught out by the House of Commons sort of standards committee, because when she was running her campaign for the last election, she was auctioning and or selling trips around the Houses of Parliament for 150 quid. Now, you will know better than anyone that is against the rules, because you're not allowed to auction it, you're not allowed to offer it as a prize for money of any kind. She was also, by the way, if you paid her 100 quid, she'd make you a cake. Can you imagine? I mean, I don't know what politics has come to. I don't know whether you've experienced anything like this. She claims that she doesn't think she's done anything wrong. Now, this is not one of those things that you can claim, oh, my office did that and I didn't know anything about it. Because if she's showing people around the Houses of Parliament, she must know that the people she's showing around have paid for the privilege of doing so.
I mean, the rules are there. It's very clear. And she's been in the House of Commons long enough.
To be fair, the Green Party's only got like 5 people. So she's going to be part of the executive decision-making team, isn't she? It's not like there's hundreds and hundreds
apparently
of
she raised
in
something.
the
I
Green
think she
Party.
raised about 18,500 quid from various fundraising events that she did, which is quite a lot of money.
But they're the ones, I remember election night, European election night, they're the ones who stand on chairs and start sort of shouting down at people, fascist, Nazi, scum.
Oh yeah, they were also the ones that claimed that Brexit was going to ruin the entire nation of Britain.
But that's a different matter.
Well, that's another
and let's
story.
be fair, they're also the ones committing child exploitation with that poor little girl from Sweden.
That's right. Who's coming to Bristol, funnily enough. She's coming to Bristol on Friday.
I think she's going to end up a sort of self-hating emo
She has got
at the age of
mental health
19.
issues, and it's
Well,
just
I mean,
not fair.
again,
It's messed up, isn't it?
Her parents, I mean, I wouldn't even put her in the planks list, but I would put her parents in it, because, they've admitted now that before she became this kind of poster girl and Nobel Prize nominee, that she didn't speak for 2 years and she had eating disorders. I mean, it's not normal.
It's not fair.
it's not
If you're a parent,
really not
you're
fair
not going to be
on
putting her front and centre of where she is. Anyway, let's go for your second nominee, Mr. Page.
Suella Braverman. I call her Suella Deville.
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
could have done that for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. She says, I want to restore the confidence in the courts. That's great, but what she wants to do is to stop judicial review, which doesn't come from the taxpayer. And if it's a rubbish thing, this is attacking the government when they get it wrong. And it's really a complete and utter non-starter. What's happening, I know we've discussed it on your radio show many times before. If she wants to restore confidence in the courts, what she does is put more money in them. 40% of all Crown courts are lying idle at the moment. Crime is rising, and people are waiting over 550 days before they can get their trial. It's bad for victims, it's bad for witnesses, it's bad for defendants, it's bad for justice.
And is it
That's what she should be doing.
Is it because they haven't got enough people to run the courts? Or
No,
is it
there's
why?
plenty of people. They're sending
Well, why is it
judges
then?
home.
Well, why?
Because what they do, they're cutting the number of sitting days to save money. They've closed half of all magistrates' courts, and as I said, 40% of Crown courts are not sitting.
But that's mad, because they're spending all this money. And we're told that Rishi Sunak, who's the new Chancellor, has found an extra 8 billion.
Look,
he
he's
didn't know he
found
had.
the money tree. He's found the
all
money
right.
tree.
Well, that's fine. Well, why don't they spend it then?
Well, because there's no political sex in the criminal justice system unless it's your kid, unless
do you
it's
know
your
what?
dad,
I
your mum,
disagree
your
with that.
friend.
I think people generally out there actually do care about criminal
I
justice,
think they
because
do.
they want to see people getting punished.
But
they
the
want to see
government
people.
doesn't think it
But there's no
does.
space in prison anyway. Put them in prison, they're going to be out in like a week, aren't they?
No, that was the other great myth. But I don't know.
I mean, I spoke to Jeremy Dean, one of your cohorts, the other day. I don't know whether you get on with him or you don't.
Yeah,
get on
it
with
seems
him.
all right.
But he was giving me all this guff about how, well, of course, when we sit there sentencing people, we have to take into account the fact that there's nowhere to send them. I said, well, that's not your job. Your job is to send them to prison, not to think about how overcrowded it's going to be when they get there.
I really hate really hate saying this, but he was wrong and you were right.
Well,
you know,
again,
could you
this comes as
get
no
that out?
surprise
I don't want to
to me.
really, it's going to destroy my
No, but I
reputation.
mean, I think the problem is that people's perception, and Alex is part of the people's movement of democracy because she got elected to Brussels as a result of all of the people in this country who were sick to death of hearing the people that run this country telling them that they were wrong. And I think we now need to separate Brexit away from all the other things that they're wrong about.
Brexit is over.
Of course it is. But
It's
what I'm
over.
saying is that we need to keep that kind of people's movement pushing and pressurising the powers that be to say this is what we want to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've
This
never
is
had
very
so much
depressing.
agreement in my life.
No, but it won't last.
Right, Alex, you're number 2.
Well, Brexit isn't over, which is why my number 2 is the EU negotiators, especially actually, I've got to say, especially in all of this, the French.
Yes.
The French are not being particularly quiet at the moment.
No.
All of
They're
Macron's
French.
allies are bobbing up saying, we need your fish, you must follow our rules. I was listening to the
poisson.
Today programme this morning, which is a bit of a painful
What do you do that
experience
for?
these days. But do you know what, actually, when I want a lie-in, I put it on because it sends me back to sleep.
Yes.
Genuinely, that is one of the reasons I had it on.
It is very soporific.
But they had Nathalie Loiseau on there, who's in Macron's En Marche party, and she was banging on about how, you know, the UK must follow all the EU's environmental standards and this, that, and the other. And the interviewer said, well, the UK standards are better.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, but, you know, we don't know if in the future that's going to be... And I'm like, look, just say it like it is.
Yeah.
You're bricking it because we're going to do really well out of this.
They were all arguing with themselves, weren't they, about who's going to cover this massive gap in money that's now the result of the UK leaving the EU.
So they must have
yeah,
seen
but
that.
no,
MS.
well, yeah, except no,
And they've
because
gone from cherry picking to cherry picking themselves to saying, oh, we could have a Canada-style agreement, and that's no longer on the table. It's quite clear, actually, the edifice is beginning to crumble, and they don't really know what they're doing.
By the way, can I just ask, does a Canada-style agreement mean that you have to take Harry and Meghan back because they're in Canada, technically? Somebody's a rhetorical question, sorry.
Maybe the part of the trade is we get something else out of Canada for them.
Poor Harry.
Maybe some
I feel
more
sorry for
maple
him.
leaves. The Canadians are a strange breed, but that's another story altogether. Right, my second one, and this is not without any fear or favour, it's got to be Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, who has been the most ghastly individual I think anybody has ever encountered, even just looking at him and watching him going in and out of court with that
believe a word
ridiculous
of that.
walker. What a load of old cobblers, right? He claims that he was in a car accident and he had an operation on his back.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I mean, the lawyers should be ashamed of themselves because not only have they tried to paint him as an old, decrepit individual who couldn't possibly have, you know,
He's younger than me.
in any way forced himself on anyone, right? But that's the narrative they want. Then when they put him in the old, the what do you call it, the Black Maria to take him to Rikers Island, he suddenly develops, you know, some kind of heart palpitations, and they bring him into Bellevue where he's hoping that they'll keep him for a while. But I think he's now been taken properly to prison, where hopefully he stays for the rest of his life.
One thing that is terrible is when you have, these guys are everywhere. And maybe women do it as well. I'm not saying they don't, but I think it's predominantly males who do actually use positions of power and leverage to try and get their way with women. And I think, you know, it's probably fairly commonplace that women feel like they have to not necessarily sleep with somebody, but at least sort of flirt with them a bit or sort of maintain this mystique of being interested.
I find that to be totally outrageous because why should they? Why should they have to do that?
Exactly.
You know, and you know, people have castigated me in the past because I say, well, I've got a daughter, you know, who's been through some of this stuff. But it's not. I'm not just saying that. You know, because I have got a daughter, I do know what some of the stuff that she's had to put up with. You
but
know,
yeah, you're
creepy
right.
Guys
One is
her
like a
messages
sort of
at night,
horrible.
You know.
Attack,
and
then the other is deliberate day in day out manipulation, lying.
I think it is worse.
And that is.
But what about young boys, 16, 17, 18, people who are just going to university? They want to have sex with someone. They want a relationship with someone. Wow, the confusion that they have in their minds is so difficult. In our day, if we went on a slow dance, well, you know, just see how far you got. Let's be honest, and that's how it was. Technically, that would be an assault. I mean, no one cared because it would really just say, oh, go away, stop it, and that would be the end. If you persisted, then you would be committing some form of criminal offence. But for young men, it's a very, very difficult time for them.
It's a mixed bag, though, isn't it? Because on one hand, you've got a sort of narrative coming out about respecting women. I had this ridiculous concept the other day of men actually having to sign consent forms, which
that's
actually I think is,
ridiculous.
well, that's dangerous actually, because in the same way
Well,
you could
were
pressurise
involved in that
someone.
famous case, weren't you, of consent
You could
that the guy
pressurise
was
someone to
accused of
sign a
rape.
form, and then you're
or have an app
protected.
on your phone. Can you just before the
exactly.
crucial moment in a pub, or will you press the button so you consent?
But at the same time,
Stupid.
in this society that, you're sort of saying men can't do this, men can't do that, sexual harassment, and the Me Too movement spiraled out of control, I think. But on the other hand, you've got a society where you've got these Kardashians stalking around like porn stars.
Yeah.
You've got music videos with women twerking all over men just standing there like, come on, B-I-T-C-H.
And there's no question that, I've got 2 teenage boys as well who are being very sexualised by the imagery that they see, the whole kind of sexting thing that goes on at school.
You can just access porn like that.
Yeah,
Any
exactly
kid
right.
with a smartphone
I saw.
can just...
I read an amazing piece in the Times over the weekend about the new rules for dating. It was terrifying.
What's the new rules for dating?
Well, the new rules for dating is that most people now apparently find each other via some kind of app.
Yeah.
You don't really go. And the question was, and here's a question that was put: if a guy leaves his card with a maitre d' in a restaurant and asks for it to be given to the lady sitting over there, how do you react to that, right? And they asked 4 women, I think, who were having dinner in this particular restaurant. They said they were all between sort of different ages of 20-something. And they basically said, well, if it turns out that they fall in love and get married, it's the most romantic story ever. But if he kills her, obviously it's a terrible story and he's a stalker. And I'm going, there's a couple of things in between those 2 things. How about they just have a really nice evening together?
Or
and
they
he takes
say
her out
she
for
says
dinner
no.
and they go to bed, or she says no, or she ignores
is?
it. It's all about, and there's new words, breadcrumbing. You know what that is? And it's not disgusting. He's looking at me like,
I can
he's
imagine
looking at
what
me
this
like,
is actually.
pretty sure I might have
These sort
done
of
that.
little suggestions of promises that, maybe we could go on a week. I'm guessing.
You
I
know
don't
what it is. Very good.
Because they do it.
Very good.
I
No,
figured
apparently.
it out because this is what guys do.
Yeah, no, this is breadcrumbing apparently is when people flirt with you continually and offer to go out with you, but then never do, apparently.
Yeah, you get those people.
Yeah.
Both sides, actually. Because
Cushioning.
women owned that sport for a long time. Let's
Cushioning
be fair.
is apparently
Except it wasn't called break
being hit up by somebody on an app who's attached already. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Ghosting you know about because that's what Megan specialises in. But there's all these new terms which I know nothing
didn't know
about.
anything about.
Gaslighting, isn't that
Gaslighting
something?
has
Don't know
become a
what it is,
thing.
but-
And all these little things, these emojis, I didn't realise what a cucumber meant.
It's not.
Oh, it's an aubergine. It's an
yeah. Cucumbers.
He knows.
Cucumbers are green. Okay. Aubergines are purple. There's a clue there.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Now, ready for your 3rd nomination?
One French
Have you got
woman
anybody
again.
who's not in the cabinet?
Oh yes,
Oh, good.
This is Rebecca Long Bailey.
Ah, yes.
Oh,
it's a good
she
one,
really
it's a
is
good
a
one.
ghastly woman. I know. Oh God, say woman, individual.
She
because
was in it
otherwise
last
it'd be-
week.
Was she really? Oh, what a shame.
That's okay.
I am not continuity Corbyn.
No, but she-
No, of course
no,
she's
of
not.
course she's
She's
not.
only supported by John Lansman, who runs Momentum. Only
Yeah,
supported by
He's a nice
Jeremy
man, isn't
Corbyn.
he? Lovely.
Absolutely right. Even the Samaritans hang up on him. He is really, absolutely ghastly. Anyway, she wants everyone in the Labour Party to sign a form on transphobia.
Oh, yeah.
Never mind anti-Semitism. Well, who cares about that?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you're transphobic, you must be thrown out.
Yes.
You're lynched.
Yes.
Now, that to me is absolutely wrong.
Just stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it already. Like, I'm sure
Stop
if
it
you,
already.
if you look at statistics of how many people are born thinking they're not the gender that they're
Right.
born with,
Yes.
it's tiny. It's really tiny. And yet the amount people bang on about
Oh,
it,
I know.
push
No,
it
but
down our
that's
throats
not the-
constantly,
that's not
it's
the
going to start
problem.
making people think they need to
But
change
Alex,
their gender.
That's not the problem. We've all interviewed people who actually have felt in the wrong body since the age of 6. Now, I've got sympathy and let's do everything we
huge.
possibly can to assist them. But to say to, I don't know, a kid of 10, 15, 16, 17, you can identify with whatever you want. Okay, to a certain extent, perhaps. But what if you want to go to a female prison and you've still got the title?
Yeah.
That has happened.
Yeah.
That is wrong.
And a
what if you want to
female,
go into a female
refuge.
changing room?
A refuge.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, the scary
We've
part
gone
is you've got
mad.
schools in, I know there's one in Wales where
Yeah.
they've changed because there was one kid at GCSE level who decided they were a different gender.
Yeah.
They changed all the toilets to unisex. Now, as a woman who once a month has my woman's issues to deal with, who likes standing in front of a mirror to top up her mascara, who if I've had a bad, shitty day in the office or whatever, that's your place where you go and cry and hide. And if you want to take a dump, because you're not supposed to dump when you're a woman, we don't do that. That's a myth. We don't
No,
actually.
nobody's ever seen it.
No, it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. But, the toilet is the most private personal, safe space for girls, especially teenage girls, going through so many physical changes. Changing the situation for everybody to accommodate one is mad. In terms of, let's expand this into different areas. So when it comes to transgender people, why should all toilets then not be male or female because one person doesn't identify as male or female? That's the same way as saying, because there are people out there who are blind or hard of hearing, we have to constantly walk around with blindfolds on and earmuffs so they don't feel left out. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Do you know what I mean? It's
and if
just
someone's had the
mad.
operation, it's completely different.
Yeah, you've got to
but they've
respect
still got the
people.
tackle. It is very, very disconcerting.
Yeah, you've got to respect people and protect them and give them help if that is the way they are. But actually pushing the agenda as hard as is happening is actually going to create transphobia. It's going to create a sense of
resentment. But also, the Labour
resentment.
Party is becoming this kind of crank organisation where if you don't all believe the same thing, you have to get kicked out. But there we are. Your final nominee.
Oh, this is a brilliant one. It's got to win, surely. All of those lunatics who have now refused to buy Yorkshire tea because Rishi Sunak took a photo with Yorkshire tea.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I've got 3 points to make on this. 3 delicious points. So first of all, actually, all these woke lefties, Yorkshire tea is basically the last family-owned business, which isn't controlled by Kraft and Unilever and is part of the big capitalist cartel. Yorkshire tea is one of the last remaining brands, isn't that? Secondly, actually, by not buying this tea, the people who profit, apart from the company Yorkshire Tea, the people who benefit from that tea being sold are actually the people in India and Kenya and Sri Lanka who grow the tea. That's where it comes from. Then the third one is, if they're that woke that they don't want it because a Tory drinks it, I mean, great, if they did that on all products that Tories drink, they'd all, Darwinianism would make them die.
Yeah, exactly.
But
get Rishi Sunak to endorse a few other things.
Everything. Let's just starve them out of existence.
Water.
Exactly. Oxygen. But no, the other thing is, if they're that woke, why are they drinking tea anyway? Because surely tea is the product that made the British Empire great.
Do you know why?
It's rooted in cultural
You're right. Do you
appropriation.
know why?
It's rooted in slavery.
Because
it's rooted in
property is theft.
Exactly.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good. He's actually done some work on this.
It's the most
Very
mindless,
unusual.
banal
It really is.
protest.
And also, of course, the famous picture of Rishi Sunak holding the tea is only occupied and copied a few weeks ago. I think it was during the election campaign of Jeremy Corbyn holding the same thing.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Corbyn has already endorsed
but his
the tea.
constituency is in Islington, where Rishi Sunak's is in
actually
Yorkshire.
I know.
Rishi could have done a little sort of extra flourish and done hashtag Chaiwalla.
Yeah,
that would have
really upset
them.
That would have really upset them. But you know, it's incredible. I did a whole show this week about this whole madness of the left, who have now not only kind of decided that everything that they don't like should be banned, but that nobody else should be allowed to have it either. So that even it's not good enough for them to just ban it from, the local Labour Party working men's club, but they have to ban it from every supermarket, every restaurant. It's absolute madness, complete and utter nuts. It really is.
It is.
I think that's the winner, actually.
It could be.
Scott,
We
it's
can't
sad
hang
to
on.
say this, Alex.
There is a process here. I know that. Next time, just remind me the next time you're up in court, right? I'll just walk in as you're in the middle of your summing up, and I'll just say, actually, don't worry about listening to that because we're going to give it to him over there.
All right.
Right?
Okay, we know
so
there's one here.
have
Right, just
patience.
calm down.
Have patience, right?
All right, then.
In a desperate attempt to become popular with you, he's now nominating
I'm
you.
just
He
breadcrumbing her,
also
that's all.
trying
Oh.
desperately,
That's the
also
breadcrumbing.
trying desperately to prove that he's not a horrible
gaslighting.
sexist, having nominated 3 women. My final nomination is another organisation, the RSPCA, Royal Society for the Protection of Cruelty to Animals. Prevention, rather, not protection. Here's the thing. You might remember, and a man who stayed on the plank list longer than probably he should have done, Jolyon Moron, your friend.
He's not my friend.
Well, he's one of your fellow barristers. You're in that secret society
You could
of
be
barristers
interchangeable,
together.
In a
well,
dark room.
he's considerably younger than me as
Well,
well, so yes.
you may remember that...
But I don't dress up in my wife's kimono and beat foxes to death.
well,
Damn, that's
he does, of
exactly
course.
the man I was looking
You might remember that on Boxing Day, not only did he do that, but he then boasted about it on Twitter and then tried to make out that he was in shock and he hadn't meant to boast about it on Twitter at all, and he was very sorry. He then disappeared off Twitter for the entire month of January,
Yeah.
right? He then reappeared on January 31st to say that he was disappearing from Twitter. And we were like, well, you've already been off it for a month. What's the point? But he then offered some kind of ridiculous sort of soothing balm on the Brexit debate by saying, you know, we are leaving the European Union tonight. There were people putting stories out on the week of the leaving of the European Union that Jolyon was going to come up with some final kind of, you know, last minute rescue of Britain remaining in the EU with some court case. Of course, it was all rubbish, right? Yeah. And the guy's clearly got quite a few problems. I don't know what he's doing, but his name came up this week, and people asked the RSPCA how their investigation was going into this terrible, brutal assault and killing of an innocent fox in his back garden. And the RSPCA, who have had not only his confession, but also have had the best part of 56 or 7 days to look into the situation as to whether or not he committed any kind of crime or indeed some kind of horrendous, you know, act against an animal, have said they're still investigating.
What are they going to look at?
What exactly?
He beat up a
What
fox.
exactly?
Did he cause unnecessary suffering?
Yeah, but
Did
hang
one
on.
whack? No.
Well, why can't they just say, well, we've investigated it, and, you know, it's a very unfortunate incident, but, you know, we won't be taking any further action. Instead, they say we're still investigating.
What about the
I mean,
rights
what
of
are
the
they doing?
chickens?
What are they doing?
What about the
I know.
rights of the chickens?
I think what's going on here is if they find him guilty of something. Now, this is, you know, if they find him guilty, what's the charge going to be?
Yes.
Is it an actual crime?
It
What
is a crime,
punishment
yeah.
does he face?
If he's found guilty,
they're then dealing with somebody who's in the industry of being able to defend themselves, and it could snowball for the RSPCA.
Well, knowing him
if
as
they
we do-
don't charge him, does that then condone everyone out there clubbing foxes to death?
Well, there are
actually,
so
it's
many
a-
questions
it's a-
that I have about this particular incident. I mean, one, why does he have a baseball bat? He lives in Southwark, okay? Now, as far as I know...
If you live in Southwark, you need a baseball bat.
Well, I mean, I think there are those who would say that he's previously said that he's got a baseball bat in case there are intruders, right? Which is a lethal weapon, right?
Well, it depends how you use it, isn't it?
Well, it does, but if you don't use it to hit a ball with and you use it to crack somebody's head,
Yeah.
it's a lethal weapon.
But
right?
he's not committing offence because it's in his own home, so big.
Well, he's committed an offence by killing a fox.
Well, no,
right?
we don't know he's done that yet.
Well, he has. He admitted to it.
But it's
If
not
it's an offence.
He admitted
no,
to it.
Killing a fox is not an offence. It's causing unnecessary cruelty is the offence.
Well, killing
100
something's
guineas,
not
please.
causing
100
cruelty.
guineas, please.
Well, where'd you get that from? You tell he's a lawyer. You know, I'm sorry I killed you.
Look, I'm reading
but
on
it wasn't-
Wikipedia. It must be
It's
true.
just one baseball bat
So,
whack and
so
it's
I could
fine.
actually go to a court of law and make a case that I was not being unnecessarily cruel after killing something.
Yeah, of
Is
course.
that
As
what
long
I
as
should
it's not a
do?
human being. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I mean, no wonder people hate lawyers. It really is quite extraordinary. Okay, so let's have a recap because we now have to whittle down the 9 that we have to 3. So your 3 were Priti Patel.
Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, and Rebecca Long Bailey.
Okay. Your 3 were?
Mine was Harry and Meghan
Yeah.
again, EU negotiating team, and the tea saboteurs.
Tea saboteurs. And my 3 are the RSPCA, Caroline Lucas, and Harvey Weinstein. I'm going to let you pick my one. Which one do you think of those 3 is the better to go forward?
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein, okay. And I'm going to pick the tea people for you, so you have to pick his.
It's got to be Rebecca Long Bailey.
Of course it is.
On any given week, somebody like Rebecca Long Bailey could be in the top 10, right? However, the tea people very much this week.
Oh, very much.
And
so.
Weinstein,
Very current.
I think, very current as well. So I would suggest that we kick out Rebecca Long Bailey. She can come in 3rd. So we're down to 2. So the tea people and Harvey Weinstein.
I think tea.
I think
gotta be
I'm going to
tea.
vote for tea. You
I'm
vote
going
for
to vote for tea.
Hands
I'm
up.
Obviously
gonna vote
voting
for
for
tea.
tea.
Unanimous. Jerry Hayes, Alex Phillips, thank you very much indeed. Plank of the week is the tea people. We'll see you next week for more plankery.